in this example, we'll compute the federal income tax based on the tax rates shown in this table. The table holds 4 different categories of filers. The filer could be single, married filing jointly, married filing separately, or head of a household. Let's just focus on a filer being a single. If the filer is single, making between $0 and $8,350, that amount is taxed at 10%. Any amount over $8,351 and less than $33,950 is taxed at 15%, and so on. If the single filer makes over $372,951, that amount over $372,951 will be taxed at 35%. Similarly, we can study the tax rates for different categories or status of filer. So let's write the program. We go to Visual Studio. I've written some of the program already. The variable income holds the income of the person, of the filer. The status of the filer is encoded into 0, representing single, 1 representing married filing jointly, 2 represents married filing separately, and 3 represents head of a household. So the status is really an integer variable. Prompt the user to enter taxable income. We'll read it into income. We'll prompt the user to enter status. We'll read it into status variable, and then we'll declare the variable tax to hold the tax due, basically. Next, what we do, we'll start our conditional statement. This is a multi-way conditional statement. If the status is, if the status of the filer is equal to 0, that means the user is, the filer is a single. So we have checked the status of the filer. In fact, we can have else if. Then the next clause for the status will be else if status is equal to 1. That means that the filer is married and filing jointly, and we can come up with the code later. And else if here, if the status is equal to 2, that means that the filer is married but filing separately, and then this code will go in here for that one. And finally, else it's the case of head of a household, basically. So we can actually say if status, else if status is equal to 3, that the filer is head of a household, filing as a head of a household, and the code will go in here. And finally, the last else that we have here, the last else clause with no if in there, there is no more status, no more valid status. So if the status is not one of these 4 numbers, then we will just output cout invalid status. All right, end line. We can write system. Well, we'll get to that part shortly. Now let's get back to the status. Let's say the status of the filer is 0, meaning that the user, the filer is a single person. So here is the table once again. If the person makes between 0 and $8,350, the tax rate is 10%. So let's write that. So we come right in here and start. If income is less than or equal to $8,350, that's the first row. If that's the case, then the tax due is equal to 10% of this amount. So it will be the income multiplied by 10%. We can declare constants for these rates, but it's okay this way as well. That takes care of that. Oops. So that we are still in single status. That takes care of that. Else if this single person if the income of this single person Now I'm going to the second row. I'm here. If this person makes below $33,950, so income is less than or equal to $33,950. So what would the tax be? The tax is going to be equal to the first 8,350 is taxed at 10%. So 8,350 is multiplied by 10%. Right? Anything over that, but below 33,950 is taxed at, I believe, 15%. So then it will be income, whatever the income is. Let me just open parentheses here, and then income. We'll subtract from it 8,350. That amount is taxed at 15%. That's done. We'll go after else if. Now if the income, now the next row for a single filer, if the income is below 82,250. So if the income is less than or equal to 82,250, then what would the tax be? The tax is equal to, once again, the first 8,350 is taxed at 10%. We add to it, and then the difference between 33,950, subtract from it 8,350. That range is taxed at 15%, and anything above, that's the income, anything above the amount of 33,950 is taxed at 25%. Let me check. So anything between 33,951 and 82,000 is taxed at 25% basically. So we'll put that in there. Go in there, and that is at 25%. That takes care of that one. Now we'll go to the next case. Let me put semicolon here as well. So else if the next range of income is less than or equal to 171,550. And here it is. We are in this range. If the filer makes between 82,251 and 171,550, the tax rate is 28%. So we'll go right in here. So the tax will be equal to, once again, but the first 8,350 is at 10%. The next range all the way up to 33,950 is at 15%. We'll grab those, Control C, we'll bring it here, avoid retyping. Now I will add to it. Now the next range that we had in the previous one was basically 82,250 and subtract from it 33,950. That is taxed at 25%. It's taxed at 25%, and then we'll add to it. Now anything above 82,250, so that's the income, subtract from it 171,550. This amount is taxed at 28%, 0.28. The next row is 372,950. That's the range basically, which is at 33%. So we'll go to the next one. So if the income, else if the income is less than or equal to 372,950, 172,950. If that's the case, then the tax will be equal to, once again, we know that we can just copy all of these from the previous one right all the way up to here. Control C. We'll bring it down here. That's equal to Control V. And then let me just get back to this, and then we'll add to it 171,550, subtract from it 82,250. We know that this is taxed at the rate of 28%, that particular range. I'm going to add to it, and the next piece is if the income is again between 171,550 and 372,950, then it's taxed at 33%. So income, that's 171,550. This is taxed at 33%. Semicolon. That's that one. Now we have one more case, or the last row basically, and that's else now. Else, basically we know once we get here, we know that the single filer is making over $372,950. Basically we are in this particular row basically. So if the filer is making that amount, and let's go back to the code, we can copy all this section, Control C it. That's equal to Control V, and we'll add to it plus now we'll have 372,950, subtract from it 171,550. We know that this is taxed at 33%, so multiplied by 0.33%, and then we'll add to it. Now any portion of the income that's above $372,000, $372,000 and $950, that is taxed at the rate of 35%, so 0.35. That's the last else clause. So we are done with coding of the single filer, and that would be the tax basically. Now the other filing status will be coded similar to this, and at the end, I'll let you do that part. At the end, when we come out of it, you basically need to say, well, see out the taxes computed, the tax due, federal tax due is dollar amount, and then we'll write tax and line, and we want to have system pause, return 0. All right, I think that's it. Let me run this once, and of course we just coded the single filer, so I am going to run this once, okay it. It comes out, hopefully. Says what was the income? Let's say 185,000 is the annual income, taxable income. Filing status, let's say we only basically wrote the code for single filer. So we'll say single filer is 0, and it comes out and says tax due is $46,192.50.